Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Well fellas, as you know, I've been concerned about these 460 E7 heads I'm doing. And they have some good things about them that I like. And I hate to say it, but John Causey could look me dead in the face and tell me to walk away from these things. And I wouldn't listen, guys. Nothing against him, because he's the guru with these heads. We all know that. That's just how my determination is on these. And I have my theories on things with them. And the only thing that scares me off about them is if I'm doing something wrong. And the reason being that would be is because what I'm doing is opening them up, as you guys know. And they have a really nice swirl design. So I know by porting them, I'm going to take that away. So that'd be really good, especially for low end torque. And this is going in my truck, 65 Ford, which is on the heavy side. So anything to do with torque, I surely don't want to do away with that. So on another video, I speculated that even on the stock side of the port, which this one here is closer to how it was, I mean, within like a few, I don't know, a 1/16 of an inch or so, I'll say. These would be fine. I speculated they would probably good to like 6,500 RPM, maybe 68, which is right where I'll probably wind up with the cam choice. So what did I do? Well, I think I did what anybody else would do. You talk to somebody smarter, well, 10 times smarter. Can I say 10 times? Let's say 100 times smarter than me. And that would be Darren Morgan. He was on Drag Boss Garage. I sent him a little bit of my input on a live screen that they had last night. And he did the best he could, knowing what he knew, just what little bit I sent him as far as what size the port was. And that's what he came up with. He said, well, I could still see not being a problem to 65 or 6,800 RPM. And here's what I sent him, guys, the information. These ports look pretty big when I'm porting them. But guys, a 200 valve. And this is after I'm porting it. Hang on, guys. Of course, when I tested that before I put the camera on, it stayed in there. You fellas know how that goes. But, alright. Let's make me look bad on you guys. But there you go, fellas. That's what I'm coming out with. That's how big that is, if you can see. And it overhangs on this port. Like the stock port, this valve's bigger than the port. So, what dilemma does that leave me? This is the first port I did. And the only reason, like I said, it came out that big is because my theory is to actually make it where this is going to run into the short turn and widen the bowl back into the runner. And that was my theory. So now, what do? Do I do like most people would do? Max it to a Cobra Jet gasket? Do I go with a Dove gasket? Well, being the Dove gasket is bigger and it has a little bit different shape, I'm just using the stock gasket, guys. I'm just using the stock gasket, and that's all the bigger I'm going. And to be honest, the way this is tapered in, I can't see it being where it's going to help it to make these any bigger. I seen a guy on YouTube porting these heads, not these heads, but a pair of aftermarket aluminum heads, and he was actually tubing and taking it all the way out past where the head bolt comes through. So I don't know if you guys can see. To me, that would be defeating the purpose of even doing that. Unless that guy was turning that engine like 8,500 and needed all that port volume, I cannot see doing that. I don't even know if it would help making that any bigger unless that thing was going on a big cubic inch engine, like 500 and some cubic inches. I don't think it would help it. And unfortunately, we're stuck today with these heads where they're being tested on, most of the time, 500 cubes. And my theory for that is, I could be wrong about this, but my theory is because these stroker kits are just as cheap as trying to almost rebuild one of these stock. And so what are you doing? You're upgrading, most of the time, a piston and your rods and whatever you get with these kits. A lot of them have upgraded stuff, and some of the stuff is even, like the rods sometimes are lighter than stock, depending on what rod you're getting. Excuse me, guys. Every time I mess with this dust out here, I get choked up a little bit. But that's the problem. When you're doing a standard 460, most of the time you're going to see guys doing stuff that are going to have 500 cubic inches, and who can blame them? If you're doing one of these engines that you're just trying to make a little bit more power with, and you can rebuild it for the price of some of these stroker kits are. If I had the money, I would surely do it myself. But this is a budget thing, and I'm just trying to see what I can get out of them. But my dilemma is, guys, it has me almost wanting to fill this port back in a little bit, because I don't think it's going to help it being bigger. I have it consistent through, and after listening to Darren Morgan so much, I never cared too much about my choke areas, but he terrifies me when you want something to be good. So that's got me a little bit concerned. I actually thought by doing what I'm doing, I've always done it this way, and it's worked out. But now these have me a little concerned, because what I did notice is even cutting the guide back and shaping it like this, I noticed when I tested this in my old-fashioned way, the way I test them, that boss doesn't seem like it affects it so much as far as flow. And especially if it's not going to increase flow and help anything with picking up airspeed or anything to do with that, it's kind of unnecessary to touch it. So that's why I say in a low RPM application, I don't know if you guys would even need to do that. That's all individual way we do stuff. One guy might cut it right back. One guy might shape it different. Some guys shape it into a teardrop. Some guys have their own spin the way they do these heads. Bullet nosing, you can't really go too wrong with doing that. That's kind of a nice mediocre way to do the guide, is bullet nose. And some guys put the tail on it, kind of like I have here, which the tail does absolutely nothing, except I tried to stay consistent and let it be its own shape. Because if you put that and try to guide that a certain way, you're going to change the pattern on the way that air funnels up, and you don't want to empty that out in the wrong direction. So that's my dilemma, guys. I really do wish I knew more about these heads. I'm trying to use common sense, but it might be one of them cases where common sense isn't that common. One thing Darren Morgan did say, it made me feel a little bit better. He says even him, all these years later, he has tendency to make things too big. He said half the stuff he does is filled in with epoxy. And right now they're doing a prototype on something that they're working on, a new type head. He said, and it's full of 80% is full of epoxy. And another thing he said that I agree with, you guys hear me talk about flow numbers all the time. He said he had a head that he put on a flow bench and it picked up big numbers. He didn't say how many, but big numbers. He said, but then on the dyno, it lost 40 horsepower. And I don't know why that would be. I don't know if it's because a couple of times he talked about the short turn. If you don't have that exactly right, which we all know that. But I don't know, that's why it lost the power that it lost when he did them heads like that. But I don't know, guys. It's really one of them deals where you'll get 50 opinions and all 50 can't be right. But in general terms, they can sure be on the same page. Just because we see things a little bit different, don't mean that we're all right or wrong about this stuff. And it surely got me thinking about, did I make this one too big still? Because I don't think it's going to help. It does have a nice way as far as restriction. The camera doesn't really show up how it really is in real life, but as far as like if I sock air through it, that might sound corny to some guys, but the air just moves right through that so easy. But does that mean anything? No. It could still lose bottom end. It could still puddle fuel by doing it like that. If I have it where the airspeed's too different around the short turn, that's what concerns me with these, because them being an oval port. I've never really messed with the oval ports too much, guys, and it's a little bit different. I would think it would actually be better with the oval port as far as going into the short turn. That's how it looks to me. It looks like it's not as restricted. But what does concern me is that the 460s have such a poor short turn on them. That's not coming from me. That's coming from guys that know a lot more than me about the short turns. So this is just things I'm running by you guys. And once more showing you my dilemma. And I'm just hoping once I go through all this trouble that it works in my best interest. And if it doesn't, all I'm out pretty much, guys, is some time. Well, a lot of time. And the other thing, excuse me, guys, the other thing I was concerned about is, like you guys, the small valve size on the exhaust. I just think that exhaust side, I said this in my other video, but I think the exhaust side, even with that small valve, 165, is going to outflow the Dove with the 172. Do I know that for sure? If it doesn't outflow it, it's sure going to be a lot more efficient. If it's not, I'll eat my words, guys. But I mean, I'm no expert. I'm just like an average Joe here. But average Joe might have more brains than I have. But it's just my thinking. It's just from what I've seen in other comparisons with heads that are similar. And that's all I'm really going by, guys. It's things I've done before and trying to put my spin on the other heads I've had that I've done that actually have really run extremely well. So, am I right on this one? I don't know. I do know this. This heads on this LS, I did things too that they say not to do. So, this 5.3, stock bottom end, stock everything, before it spun bearings out of it. I did the heads, and I had an off-the-shelf Thule cam. This engine made, I believe it was 503 or 504, and the torque, I forget what the torque was, but Rick Holder did a test, and he had to use a pair of Triplo heads to make the same numbers that this engine here made. And he also said that this intake, that it was impossible for us to make that power out of this combination. Well, he might say it's impossible because he tests all the time. But the reliable shop that did the dyno test is very well known, very reliable. The guy's very intelligent. And I believe the numbers that was on that dyno. He does it all the time. Because people like to say, well, you always wonder that. Did somebody put a dyno that wasn't loaded right and give you that number? Well, I would kind of think that if it wasn't for this car right here running the way that it ran, myself maybe, if it wasn't for knowing the guy that owns this shop, knowing what he does, knowing how knowledgeable he is, and seeing what he's had come out of that shop, that's number one. So I put faith in him. Number two, my son checked this car out on the street. He never got it to the track because the engine, like I said, spun the bearings out of it. But my son has a good seat of the pants. He checked it with his one of the things he has, the quarter mile, and the thing's very accurate. People don't like to go by them, but they say that they are not legit. This thing's been dead on compared to the track. But the number that the car put down shows that this engine, well, not this engine, this engine made that power. So that's my dilemma, guys. I don't mean to do two segments in one here. I'm just trying to give you an example to give you my theories and my thinking on stuff. So it's just not like I'm making numbers up. I'm going by the stuff that we have, how it runs, what we've done with it, and it really, in a way, it hinders me from doing what I wanted to do with these heads, because actually thinking about stuff, guys, I would say this isn't too big going by comparing it to a dove head. But I just think the way this port is designed, I don't know if I'm helping it by opening it up any bigger. I think the air moves through these ports really fast. What's that mean, guys? Yeah, lots of torque, airspeed. As long as it gets around that short turn, that's what you need when you're going in a big, heavy vehicle and you're not going to be turning it real hard. So hard's depending on what some people would consider 68. Some people consider that on the hard side. It's a little above on a 460, what I would normally do. But that's only because I've never had anything that I'm trying to make that fast when it came to the 460s before. I've always ran them on the stock side, and just whatever they ran. But guys, I just hope that we can find out exactly what we wind up with these. I'm trying to get them done, and the main thing is I have a lot to line up for this truck. I'm trying to work on the Mustang to getting it back where it was, and it's hard when you're trying to do two vehicles at one time. It's not like I'm rolling around a money pit, that's for sure. But anyway, fellas, thank you once again for listening to my dilemma, giving me your input. I appreciate you guys so much. I'll be doing another segment on these. I just hope I'm not overdoing it. Showing the 460 heads so much. It's just something that we're going along with, and I'm trying to learn, and I'm just trying to let you guys see where I'm at, my dilemmas, and find out what we can find out as far as how much power we can make out of these things. I have my speculations, but I could be totally off. But we'll find out together, guys. So thank you once again for stopping in and checking out what I'm doing. I appreciate it. And have a good day, guys. Take care.